Hey guys, what's up, AZRAnews? Welcome to today's session, the Sixth Dimension Show. We have a special guest today, and it's my dear friend Jamie Jones. And Jamie is a Grammy award-winning singer and acclaimed songwriter and producer. He's been on the Grammy-winning band called All for One. He's toured all over the world, and he's just inspired so many people. So for today, I just wanted to bring and invite Jamie to be part of this show and kind of talk about the latest single that I've shared with everybody called Dangerous, because Jamie, he's been an instrumental part of just, the making of AZRA, me. And just being there as a good human being and a good friend. So everyone, let's welcome Jamie Jones.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey Jamie, how's everything going?
I can't complain. All is well. How about you?
It's good. I feel like the last time I was like physically with you and hanging out with you in the studio, it was like a year and a half ago or something, before COVID.
It's so crazy because honestly, it doesn't feel like it's been that long, but then it does, because we've just been stuck in the house and, I haven't even been to my studios since March of 2020.
Wow.
I've been working from home in my home setup.
Yeah. I know, it's almost like looking back, like I feel like there's a difference. Like when I look back to like pre-COVID back in March of last year, yep. I'm like, oh, that seems like yesterday. But then if you actually like count and think about all the months that's passed, it's like, holy shit, it's been a year.
Yeah,
so
it's completely crazy.
Yeah. But so what have you been up to? I mean, how has this COVID experience been for you? I mean, before COVID, you were touring and I think you had like a Vegas residency lined up and all this stuff.
Yeah. Well, so my group All for One and I, we are celebrating our 28th year together, I think.
Hell yeah.
And so we had been doing quite a bit of touring. The crazy thing is right before everything shut down, I had literally just come from a tour where we were gone for almost a month. And we started in Seattle, we went to Hawaii, then we went to China, we went to Shanghai and Beijing, and then we went to Japan, and then we went to Florida. And it was crazy because while we were over there, we were starting to hear whispers of there's something going on. And I already was traveling with a mask.
Yeah.
I have this mask called a humidifier, and it's really good for singers.
Oh, that's dope.
Yeah, it helps to keep the humidity so you don't get dried out. So I was walking around looking crazy with this mask on anyways. And, and then we got back at the end of February, and we had one more date. And then next thing I know, man, we got back and they were like, yeah, I think they're going to shut things down. And then, it just got shut down. And we had quite a few shows lined up, for 2020, and all of that got canceled, or postponed, or both. And it was just completely crazy, but I've stayed busy though. I'm, my production company, the Heavyweights, and my partners and I, we've been doing quite a bit of different work, working with independent artists. We do quite a bit of work these days now with Disney and Netflix and couple other companies like that. I'm actually working on both solo music and a new EP for All for One, which will be coming out this year. And so I've got a really dope home studio, and I've been investing in my home studio for a very long time, not knowing why,
Yeah, and, I remember you talking about that too.
Yeah, well, because the thing is, I started out with a home studio, and then I wanted to be more professional. So my partners and I, we moved to a dope building, and you went to our studio.
Hell yeah!
Has
That's where I recorded.
Yes.
Couple records. Yeah.
Yes, and the Heavyweight studio has a lot of history. It used to be Marvin Gaye's studio back in the 70s. It's an amazing room. But I had been kind of building up my home studio for years because sometimes it's like I love going out to North Hollywood. I live in Woodland Hills, but sometimes I just want to work at home. And kind of unbeknownst to me, it was a good thing that I had really made my home studio kind of dope because, now I'm stuck here.
I love the soundproofing you got. I'm trying to figure that out too. I've been attempting to build out my home studio. And
Nice.
so far I got some set up,
Yeah.
but in terms of like soundproofing and things, like I need more help on that. But I'm hoping, yeah, I definitely need that help, because I looked into like panels and things. I'm like, this is too much. Like I have a headache looking into
I know. Listen, I'll give you some tips, but it's very important, because even now I can hear your sound bouncing around. And like when you're recording, you don't need that. So this is a whole wall behind me. And it's dope because you can set it up however you want. You put in front. I'm actually thinking about getting a second one. And then I've got some sound treatment on the side. I've got some sound treatment on the roof. So.
Okay, well, Jamie, you're going to have to come over one day, and then we'll do a whole situation, because this place needs a lot of help. But but luckily, I mean, I'm hoping, because like I've never actually recorded any like singles or any tracks like in my house. Even during COVID, I've been working on new music, and I've just been going to like studios and just being super careful about it. But yeah, but in terms of like recording demos and scratch vocals, I've been doing it, but this echo, it's there.
Listen, it's easy though. You can deal with it. You can fix it real quickly. And what's been kind of dope though, I will say, is technology has forced folks to switch things up. So a lot of the times when I'm working with these kids with Disney and whatnot, they literally will send a studio to their house. The kids will get in a closet, and then I can control, we can basically control their computer from here. And,
that's amazing.
Literally, through having a camera open, we can see each other. I can talk and produce them, like, when we worked on your song, and do it from anywhere. So that part of it is kind of cool, that technology has been forced to kind of catch up with the times.
Yeah, that's amazing. I know technology is everything. It's kind of like, for me, I have like a love-hate relationship with technology. You can't get away from it, but just gotta keep on evolving.
Well, I'm a super nerd, so I love anything that's technical and that kind of cool stuff. So
yeah. So that's amazing. And so then like you had all this stuff lined up for 2020, and I can totally relate to you on that, because so Dangerous, the song that we worked on, I dropped that single last like end of February. I think it was like February 26th of last year. And then we had a release show the next day on like the 27th. Don't quote me on the date, but like on that weekend. And it was my first show in LA that basically sold out, and we packed the entire venue. It was at Madame Siam in Hollywood. And the show was so dope. Everybody had so much fun. And then we had the entire year kind of planned out to go on tour. And then a couple days later, I went out to Orlando to do like a college festival. But before I heard about that, or before going on the plane to go to Orlando, I've been hearing like little noises about the corona virus, basically. So I'm like, you know what? Like, even though, America's not really like, it hasn't caught up fully, I'm still gonna like bring a mask.
Right.
So I wore a mask at LAX, and then I wore the mask like on the plane. And when I got to Orlando, and people are just looking at me like I'm like this weird person.
Right.
And even my manager was just kind of like, keep it on, but just to let you know, like, like nobody else is wearing the mask, but he was trying to keep me safe. So, and then literally like 3 days after I got back from Orlando, it was like corona, lockdown, everybody just stop what you're doing and stay home.
Yeah, I think everybody has one of those stories of either them being the one wearing a mask and everybody's looking at you crazy, or seeing someone, and I mean, that was us. Like the thing is, I remember, my wife, Hannah, who's my business partner and manager.
Love Hannah.
Hannah went and bought all these masks before we left. And so she's passing them out to all of us. Like, wear a mask. But the thing is, back then, the reasoning was like, we had a very, very tight schedule. And it was like, no one can afford to get sick. We got a lot of shows in a little time. So, just put this on. That way, if somebody's sick around you with a cold, we weren't thinking corona. We were thinking flu or something like that,
Yeah.
So she's handing out masks, and we were flying. We were also on the train, and we're wearing our masks. And like I said, the one that I wear, which is called a humidifier, like I would have like the stewardess come in and they're like, "Hey, what is that?" And I'm like, "Oh, man." I'm trying to explain. They're like, "Is it a CPAP?" I'm like, "No." And they're like, "We need to know what that is before we take off." So I was explaining. I'm a singer. Here's what it does.
Hell yeah.
And I would have to show them the bag, and and they'd be like, "Oh, all right, okay, well, you can wear it."
I need to get one of those. I love humidity. Oh my God, steaming before singing, it's the best.
It's the best. And honestly, I'm telling you, on show days, on travel days, I would be walking around with this thing on, and I'm looking like Sub-Zero from Mortal Kombat, and it's like, but the thing is, man, my voice would just be in such great shape. Because when you go to different places and the air might be dry or whatever the case is, and it can dry out your vocal cords. So I was always like, great.
And then we got our throat coat.
Yes.
And our echinacea drops.
Yes. All of it. You listen, I have a whole bag.
Hot water.
Yes.
Oh, I've seen it. I've seen your bag.
I showed it to you. I call it my singing bag. I mean, I've got throat coat and drops and tea and nasal sprays and just everything.
Yeah. I remember like my family members, they'd be like, what do you want for Christmas? And for a while, I'd be like, don't worry about anything. Just get me throat coat. Like, just get me boxes and boxes.
That's right.
I did that one year, and I still have like a shit ton of throat coat in my cabinet. So I'm good.
Listen, it's not like it goes bad, so it's a good thing. This is our instrument. You got to take care of it.
Yeah. And I also remember before COVID, visiting you in Vegas when you were performing, when you had that residency. And it was such a surreal experience because it was like, I've worked with you and Matt and Hannah at the Heavyweight Studio, but then just like seeing you and All for One, just like being there. Was it at the Paris Hotel?
Yeah, it was at the Paris Hotel.
Yeah, it was amazing.
It was pretty dope, honestly. It was a lot of fun. It was different for me because, normally I'm used to being on the road and traveling. So it was just crazy that I would just, take an elevator downstairs, an hour and a half before the show, go to my dressing room, start my warm-ups, make sure that they steam my clothes the way I like it. And, it was just weird that you would come downstairs and do your thing. I put in that work. And then I would just take an elevator back up to my room.
Yeah, it's so convenient. You don't have to travel.
Yeah. No traveling. No, it was cool. And I was walking around wearing that mask too, because it's Vegas and everybody's smoking inside. So I'm walking around with this mask, and everybody's looking at me like, what's wrong with him? Or and I'm like, listen, I got shows, every night, 5 nights a week. I'm not trying to be, I need to give my best every night.
Hell yeah. I feel like the day of the show for me too, it's like a whole effort. It's like you have to make sure, like your vibe's straight, nothing kind of comes from sideways. You're just kind of like keeping yourself there. And then also the voice. I actually went back to Vegas like a couple months later, or like recently actually a couple months ago. And it's obviously different in Vegas right now because of Corona. And I didn't really leave my hotel room, but the times I had to get out to get food, wow, like I didn't realize how sensitive I am with like all the smoke and the air. It's like intense. So
it is, well, they have something amongst all the singers in Vegas. They call it Vegas throat because it's already so dry there. And then of course, when you compound all the smoking in the casino on top of that. So you got to be real diligent about staying hydrated and lots of water. And like for me, one of my weaknesses is my coffee. I love my coffee. And
you got to drink that tea.
I know, but I love my coffee. But the thing is, caffeine drives.
I do love the smell of coffee. Yes.
Yeah. It's awesome. But you got to be careful because the caffeine will also dry you out. And it's like, so when you're in Vegas and you already got to deal with Vegas throat and, you pound back.
Yeah.
So I would get a habit of, if I had a cup of coffee, I'd have 2 bottles of water afterwards.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's what my mom actually taught me ever since I was young. So I always have like the water. She's like, every cup of coffee, you have to drink 5 cups of water. And I was like, okay. But then she didn't let me drink coffee until like later, later after college. And then my mom's like, oh, you've been drinking coffee since when? And I was like, oh, college, black coffee. And she goes, oh, that's good.
Listen, Mom was dropping some wisdom on you though with the water. It's the truth.
It's the truth, I guess.
If you're a singer, you need to make sure that, caffeine is, it can be hard on your throat and especially alcohol. So you got to make sure that if you do like to partake every once in a while, that you also follow it up with some water so you can take care of your instrument.
Yeah. That's awesome. All right, so let's go ahead and kind of go back in time a little bit to the time when we first met each other. Yes. Do you remember that? Like I clearly remember. Okay, so let me hear your take.
No, I'm gonna let you go first. I want to hear you.
Yeah. So what I remember is, so basically, I remember coming to the studio. Well, I first got introduced to you through Matt.
Of course.
And basically, we were emailing. Everybody was on the email, and then I walked into the Heavyweight studio in NoHo, and you were sitting in the studio. And I remember going in there and being like, "Damn, like this vibe is so good. It's like very cozy." But then, like, I just felt that creativity. And walking into that studio through the red door, to the right, like there's like another room, like another studio, where Tim's working out of. And then you go through like the water area and stuff, and you go in, and then I saw you like sitting there. That's like a very vivid memory I remember. And then Matt was like sitting on the couch, like playing with his, I don't know what he was playing with. And then, and I was just kind of like, oh my gosh, this is Jamie. And Jamie Jones, because I've always been a huge fan of your music, All for One and things like that. So I've been following you, and then being able to like get introduced to you, to work with you on our music, and just, I don't know, it was just a very, very inspirational, like inspiring day. And yeah, that's one of the vivid memories I remember. How about you?
Well, for me, so it's the same but different, because Matt is my partner and one of my partners, and we do a lot of work together. And so Matt, I remember him saying to me like, "Hey, I met this really cool artist, and I think that if we worked on her together, we could really come up with some really dope stuff." So I said, "Of course, dude," because even though we're partners, sometimes he'll do stuff on his own, sometimes I do stuff on my own.
Yeah.
And most of the time, we all work together. And so I was like, "Yeah, that's what's up. Let's bring her over and let's see, let's vibe out and see what we can come up with." And I just remember when you came over, my first impression of you was great energy. You have great energy. Like, kind of light up the room when you walk in. And that's cool because you know how the studio is. There's no windows. It's just
dark. You're right. There's no windows.
No windows. It's just dark and vibey, and we've got the battery operated candles and the little
and the little Gumby on the studio.
Exactly.
Yep.
But the thing is, it's like when you're locked in the room for hours with someone, you want to be able to have a good vibe and someone who doesn't suck the air out of the room. Mm-hmm. And it just seems like it just makes the session seem that much longer and that much more like, oh my God, when can we be finished?
Yeah.
But you come in and you're bubbly and you have really good energy and so it was like it was a breath of fresh air. It was nice. So I remember
awesome.
And then after talking with you and just
oh my gosh, we had like a 3-hour conversation, remember?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's important. Listen,
every time.
You have to listen. One of the things I love to do is before we work, I want us to talk. Like I want us to kind of vibe out so that we can not only be on the same page, but also, as a producer, I need the singer, which in this case I need you to be able to be comfortable with me and to trust me that when you put those headphones on and you go into the other room in front of the microphone, the thing is what you're hearing is different than what I'm hearing. And as long as we're on the same page as far as the direction of this record and where it's going, I need you to be able to trust me. And then usually, as we all know, trust is earned, and when you're a producer working with great artists, you only have a little time to try to get that connection so that the artist will feel free to try things that might be slightly out of your comfort zone, but the thing is, we want to make a great record. We want to make a dope record. Everybody does. You as the artist, you want a dope record, and us as the producers and the songwriters, we want a dope record. So, there has to be this trust that is a bond that gets formed. So it's important for me, at least, I found, to really try to sit down with the artists when they come through the doors and just vibe out a little, talk, listen to music, how do you feel about music, and, so on and so forth.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And that's what I loved about, love about our sessions, because we don't just go in there and let's get to work. It's more like we vibe out, we talk about our lives, and, we'll just kind of start, building that conversation just so naturally and organically. And then before you know it, we're like, shit, that's a song,
And that's the other reason, because sometimes it's like, what are we going to write about? So sometimes you got to just kind of talk to somebody and kind of do your best to kind of get into their thought patterns and figure out what it is, who you are as an artist. What is your voice as an artist? What is it you're trying to say? How can we help you say that? What is it that you want people to get from your music when they hear it, whether it's the first time or it's the 100th time? How can we figure that out? And it takes, you can't just always just hop in a room and start working, you know what I'm saying? Unless, and you can sometimes, there have been times where we have written songs and sent it to artists, and an artist really related to that song and loved it. So then the artist comes in and they've been living with it, and they have their vision of what they want to do. So in that case, walk in, let's get to work, because everybody knows what we're doing. But when you're writing from scratch and you're trying to, help an artist find their voice and what they want to say, it takes some time to kind of just sit with the artist a little and just vibe out.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I feel like that's how it was for us too. For Dangerous, for instance, I remember, because we wrote Dimension first, and, we finished that record. And then the day I came into the studio and I was like, guys, we need to write a song about whatever the Dangerous song is about. And I remember us just talking about it, and I was so fired up. And we'll get to that. But I remember just being so passionate about it, because basically the Dangerous song is about just, normalizing the concept of a powerful woman. On top of that, just being unapologetic about who you are and not letting people or energies or industry people who are toxic get to you. And I remember coming to the studio and kind of sharing one of my experiences with you guys. And at first, I was just kind of so affected by it when I was telling you guys. And then as we were just discussing, and Jamie, as you're sharing your wisdom, and then Matt sharing his wisdom, but then in a very humorous way, kind of releasing the tension. Later on, I was just kind of okay, I know this experience that I just had about a certain person was not so positive, but then after talking to you guys, it was just kind of wow, this song can actually help other people and empower other people. Right. So I think that's kind of how Dangerous started to form.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
Yes. But it's really, I think that's one of the things I love about being an artist is, when you're an artist, you have an opportunity not only to share your story and your truth with others, but to be a voice for folks who don't know how to use their own voice, who don't know how to basically say what it is that they're going through. And so a lot of times, it's been my experience, both as an artist and as a songwriter, producer, that we have this cool, huge responsibility, I guess you could put it, to be able to be a voice for others. And I always love to encourage artists that, listen, ain't nothing wrong with writing a dope love song if that's kind of where you are at that moment when you get into the studio. But also, it's also really dope to be able to write something that is completely 100% you and who you are and your story, but is also hopefully, extremely relatable to a whole bunch of other, beautiful, smart, energetic women like yourself who have to fight and go through these things as far as, showing people that, maybe I am too dangerous for you because I am strong. I am smart. I do know what I want and I'm a go-getter. And, and there's other folks, the way I look at music is, I don't think, and I've said this to you before, in music, there's no right and wrong. There's just different, right? I might like rock and roll and hip hop. You might like R&B and pop. Doesn't make either one of us wrong. It just makes us different, right? But
Yeah.
my thing is, I know that there has to be other people in the world who listen to music the way I do, who likes the things that I like. So when I'm writing music, whether it's for myself or with a great artist like yourself, my thing is, I just want to make sure that at the end of the day, like, I love this record and I love what we're trying to say, and just the whole overall aspects of the whole project, because there has to be people who feel and love music the way I do, the way you do. And if we're all vibing in the room and we're digging it and we're loving it, then there has to be folks out there who's going to love it as well. And we just got to, make sure they hear it.
Yeah, and we've definitely talked about that before, and I totally agree with you. Like, I believe that all the ideas that we come up with, I don't think any idea is original, but I think it's like it's on the same strand, and I think all of us are just connected, and it kind of goes back to the whole idea of like oneness. Yeah. Is like when I read this book. Oh my gosh, what is the name of the book? It's like if it comes up, if it arises, love that. I don't know the exact title, but basically the whole idea is like when you get inspired or when you have an idea about something, it's not original, but if you take that idea that came to you and run with it and create something out of it, then that becomes original. Mm-hmm. And I feel like when us as songwriters and artists, like when we're inspired with an idea to write something like that, the fact that we were inspired and we were reminded of that idea, that's already telling us like, hey, there's someone out there, some energy out there that's needing or that's thinking about the same thing. And it's our duty to basically materialize it and put it out.
Yeah, listen, you're completely 100% correct. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, there's only so many notes on that keyboard behind you, right? There's so many chords, and then they've all been played before. And there's only so many ways to say I love you. But the thing is, we all have our own different perspective. We all have our own different walk in life. And the thing is, my thing as a songwriter is I have this little thing I came up with, and I call it the Yoda School of Songwriting. Because
I love that.
Well, everything's been said before, right? But the difference is, the normal person might say to somebody they love that, hey, I love you, right? But Yoda wouldn't say that. Yoda would be like, you, I love. He'd say the exact same thing, but he would say it in a way that's him. So it's all been said before. I love that.
Yeah.
How can you say something that's been said before the way you would say it? Mm-hmm. So, I say I love you, you say you I love. We're both saying the same thing. Just got to twist on it. And as a songwriter, it's always important to find that.
Or like you can say te amo, or like 사랑해요 in different languages. That was Korean and Spanish.
That's right.
Yep. No, totally. And that's amazing. And then just going off of the whole idea of like writing and and I realized like over the years, and also just like talking to you and, just connecting with other creatives, like, sometimes we head into the studio like and I think I've kind of learned this a little more as I've been kind of getting more seasoned, like going into the studio. Like first time I ever went into the studio, I felt differently than like now I go. And I feel like there are things that I feel a little more nervous about now when I head into the studio, because it's like, because I've been doing it for a while, like you go in and you're like, oh, I have to give my all, Like there's all these like weird expectations sometimes, especially when you have a great song that you want to record. Whereas like before, when I was first starting out, heading into the studio for the first time, I'm like, let's go. Who knows what's going to happen, Right. So I think just kind of managing that and just continuing to learn how to just let go and not have any like expectations or like just put a lot of weight on yourself is good too. Yeah.
Listen, it's important because the one thing that we know is a record is forever, right? Once you release it, it's out there forever. So
seriously,
take time to make it perfect in your mind. But sometimes us creatives, and this is across the board, across the spectrum, we get in our own way and we overthink sometimes. We just overthink the magic, because the thing is, there's magic in mistakes. You know, everything don't have to be completely perfect this way. And sometimes we get so wrapped up that in our mind, we have to make things perfect. But it's like, you know, when you're cutting background vocals on a song, right? If everything was exactly the same, like a lot of the vibe would just be sucked out of it. Mm-hmm. Whereas the cool part about it is, like, when you're cutting a vocal, and as a good singer like yourself, most good singers don't always sing everything exactly the same every time. Meaning you might slide into a note a little earlier. You might slide out of it. You might chop it, punch it a little more. And so it's like, okay, the left side of this vocal is doing this and the right side is doing this. And they're matching. But the thing is, they're giving me this space. Whereas if you just slap auto-tune on both of them and then vocalize both of them, then sometimes what happen is it can just suck out that spaciousness. So there can be magic and beauty in the pause. So it's just about making sure you don't overthink it. And sometimes we go in the studio like, oh, I gotta kill this, I gotta do this, I gotta sing my highest note, be strong, and then you just psych yourself out.
Be strong. It's so weird. Like, I remember one session I had, like, I was legit, like, I went in and I was like, I thought I was in good shape and ready to like cut vocals, but then like I got in this zone and I'm like, oh my gosh, and I was freaking out for a second. And I remember that specific time I had to kind of pause everything and just kind of reset. I had to like meditate in the vocal booth. So I'm like, it was just a lot. And that's the type of stuff that I don't think I've experienced before, or when I was first starting out. But now I'm just more aware of that.
Right.
So it's kind of cool. Yeah.
Right.
So, okay. So one thing, so I have a quick question. And so my AZRA deities, and AZRA deities are, as you know, they're like my fans and people that also want to be in the sixth dimension and want to go after their dreams and super unapologetic about who they are. So some of the questions that they often ask is, you know, and a lot of them are in college and in high school. And they always ask like, hey, you know, I have a dream. Like one specific AZRA deity, she's 16 years old, and she said that she has a dream to be a performer. But given her environment, her family, and just like where she lives, she's not sure if she's able to even go after that. So she's like, she was contemplating between just going the traditional path of like going to college and, you know, listening to her parents versus like, I want to go after, you know, being a performer. And so I guess the question is like, what are your thoughts? You know, what's your advice for someone, a young artist who's inside that just wants to come out and is just bombarded by all this pressure?
Oh, a couple things. First off, you have to be completely certain that you are passionate about this, that the passion inside of you to do this is so strong that no matter the roadblocks and no matter the setbacks, that you won't allow anything to stop you. Because here's the thing, in life, everything's hard. At some point, everything gets hard. Whether you're an accountant, a lawyer, a janitor, a singer, an airline mechanic, whatever it is you decide to do in life, at some point, it will get hard. And what happens is the things that you are not completely passionate about, when they get hard, you are more inclined to quit. It's a lot easier for you to justify it in your mind that, you know what, I'm good. Let me do something else. And the thing is, I tell this to everyone, you know, I tell it to my kids as well. You have to find what you're passionate about in life, and then you have to chase that like there's no tomorrow. And you got to make sure that you thicken up your skin, because everywhere you go, someone's always going to have something to say. It might be a positive something, it may be a negative something. But if you know deep down inside you that you've got this burning to do something specific, then you have to find ways to make sure you don't allow things to get you off track. Now, sometimes in life, we do have to make certain compromises, meaning, okay, I do have to have something to fall back on just in case. So maybe I will go to school, but at the same time that I'm in school, I will spend all my free time instead of partying and doing this other stuff. I'm gonna go to the University of YouTube and I'm gonna learn how to do these things or learn.
YouTube is the ish.
That's the second university. So, you could do your undergrad in YouTube and your other, degree over here, but you can figure out how to find ways to make yourself better at what it is you want to do. Mm-hmm. The thing is, we all got to eat. So sometimes until that thing you're passionate about comes to fruition, you got to do over here to make sure you can chase this. And then once you get into, a specific lane or a specific a row of success, that's when you can make that choice. Like, okay, now I'm going to do this 100% of the time. But my advice to everyone always is, listen, find your passion, and then you have to set goals for yourself. And it's important that you write it down. It's important. You and I have talked about this in the past, right?
Yes.
You got to be able to see it, because what happens is, as you write these things down, starting with small goals, because a whole bunch of small goals will eventually become a large goal, a large win, right? So you write it all down. I want to do my first YouTube video. I want to get this many subscribers. I want to do a live set in a coffee shop. And then I want to graduate from the coffee shop to a restaurant. And I'm going to graduate from a restaurant to a small club. And then so you got to write it all down and you chase it and you check it off as you get it done, because that will allow you to see that even when you thought you were stagnant and when you thought nothing was happening, you could still see a succession of things like, no, I was checking that off. No, I checked that off. No, okay. So I am still moving toward my goal. And, some people get super lucky, and the first time they try it, they get a record deal, or they come out and it blows up and it goes viral. But that's not most people. Most people got to put that work in. And it doesn't matter how established you are or how new you are, because even established artists can't just say, oh, I got a fan base, so whatever I put out, they're going to buy. Because I can show you example after example of superstars who have put out projects that were duds because people just didn't relate to that music at that time.
Right.
And they had to go back to the drawing board and put that work in. So, there's no formula. If there was a formula that said I could have a hit, if I just write it this way and sing it that way, I'd have a hit every week. I feel like in the music industry, like there's no formula. There's no blueprint. It's like, because you never know what people are going to dig. The funny thing is, being on the other side of the coin. So I have the performance side where I'm an artist, but then being on the other side of the coin where I'm just a songwriter and a producer and a businessman. And a lot of times, like when I would go to pitch songs for different artists, and I would go to a label and have a meeting with like an A&R guy. Yeah. And let's say I walk in with 6 songs, right? I would put them in order of what I felt like my best to my worst was, right? Most of the time, the songs that would get chosen were always ones I put last. The ones that I thought were going to be, they're going to hear this first one and be like, we want that one. And it's like, that's the one that they don't choose. And then they choose the one that I just was like, it's good. Let me just put it on there just in case, if they say, those are cool, you got anything else, And then that's the one that they choose so many times because, music is such a personal thing. And right. And you just never know what people are going to like. So you got to know going in. You got to know going in that it might take a minute of just work and putting in that work and putting in that work and continuing to work. If you have that fire inside of you, there's no quit. There's only, okay, cool, on to the next. So that would be my advice to anyone young who's trying to get in this is just know. You're going to hear a lot of no's. You're going to hear a lot of negativity. You're going to run into those folks. But listen, words can't pierce your skin. Words, they can hurt. Don't get me wrong. They can hurt. But at the end of the day, when you know that you know that you know that you know that you're where you're supposed to be doing what you're supposed to do, then you just have to learn how to turn a blind eye, deaf ear, and have super thick skin and just keep pushing forward to do what it is you came to do.